Hi, my name is Sheila Corona. Welcome to New Light Streaming Love. This is an excerpt, well, not an excerpt, this is an edition of Conscious Conversation Central. And I am very excited to share with you all my guest this evening, Jonathan Skinner. And Jonathan, I have to tell how we met because it was just 1 week ago tonight that we met, and I did an intuitive hangout session that Jonathan attended. And come to find out, in a little session afterwards, Jonathan was drawn to the channel because of the Jeshua channelings, which you can find here in its entirety on this channel in its own playlist. And I highly recommend this book to anyone and everyone because I got to be honest with you, this has been one of the most validating books I've ever read in my life. It just let me know that some things that I always felt were so actually are. And so Jonathan just sort of briefly told me a little bit about his life, but I wouldn't let him go any further because I asked him if he would come and share all of it with me and everyone else at the same time. So I'm not going to do a lot of talking tonight, I promise. It's going to be Jonathan who's going to share with us. So, Jonathan, please tell us a little bit about yourself. And I know you have your own YouTube channel too that you're just starting. I am a subscriber, by the way. So, and I will link your YouTube channel in the show more section of this video when it goes out. So if you guys are interested, you can go and subscribe. Actually, it would be a great favor to both of us if you would go and subscribe and help him grow his channel. So, Jonathan, without further ado, I would like for you to take center stage and tell us all about you and how you actually, because I know you told me you found the channel through the Jeshua channelings, but if you will, go ahead and describe a bit about why or how that happened too, if you don't mind.
Okay, thank you, Sheila, for the opportunity of being on your show. I am honored. I've been very, very excited leading up to this day. We met last Saturday night, two other guys, and Sheila mentioned that she don't really have a lot of guys in her on her YouTube channel, and it's always women. So that was very phenomenal for that to even happen to have all males in her YouTube video that she recorded last Saturday. So I
Mhm.
agreed to come back to share my experience and my unique experience when I met Jesus at the age of 13. So it was a remarkable experience. But before I get into that, I was scrolling on YouTube as always, and I have many YouTubers that I tune into regarding spirituality and their different views about the spiritual world. Some YouTubers focused on astrology, others focus on signs from the universe. So all these different aspects of spirituality. So I've been following spirituality, practicing spirituality since the age of, I want to say maybe 25, 26. And it's been an ongoing process, learning different things that I didn't know before, unprogramming, unteaching myself what was dumped onto me as a child from, my grandmother raised me along with my aunt. They both stepped in the absence of my mother, who was incarcerated. And my life has remarkably changed since my spiritual experience when I met Jesus at 13. So I came across Sheila's channel. I said to Jeshua channeling, and in the Baptist church, which I grew up in, a lot of people speak about Jeshua, and not Jesus too. You hear a lot about Jesus' name, but Jeshua stood out to me. And I knew a little bit about channeling, in the spiritual realm, or spiritual aspect of it. So I was like, it's very unique for an individual. Pamela Carbe was the one who was channeling Jeshua. So I took the opportunity. I listened to each chapter that Sheila took her personal time out to read. It took a lot of energy. It took a lot of persistence to continue recording back to back like that. And I was a fan that day when I first saw chapter one, and I followed, and I followed all the way through, all the way through. I did not miss a chapter, back to back, on my way to work, coming home from work. Seriously, like, because I wanted to know more. I wanted to know more, feed me more. And we finished the chapter. So I am in the process of purchasing the book for myself so I can go back and make my own notes as Sheila did. Because each time you go back and you read the Jeshua channeling, it's always something new or a different aspect you're able to extract from it. So I do appreciate the book, Pamela, for being an open vessel, being the channeler for Joshua to come through and share who he really was outside of the sense in which we know him as far as Christianity, right? So, Sheila, thank you again for the.
I just want to share something real quick that what you mentioned there to let everyone know. My experience because of the Joshua channelings, um, because of how it happened, I have now read this book many times. And I wanted to share with you, Jonathan, that if you have the opportunity, first of all, when we do this again as a group, as a study, you are most definitely invited to come and be with us. Because I will tell you that in reading the book together with others in company in Zoom, it's as though all of us in that field, I personally had access to more. I don't know how to explain that, but it's as though because we were gathered together where one or more are gathered, I got more information. I got more out of the book, and I think that's what you were alluding to. But it's even more. It felt even more powerful for me in company with others who are also really tuned into and interested in the book. So I wanted to make that really clear to anyone who may be, considering purchasing the book. And I also would like to just say that the book, all the channelings are freely available at jeshua.net. However, I believe that's correct. I just want to check that. However, I personally wanted to own the book. Yeah, it is www.jeshua.net. And she even says that in the front cover here that they are freely available. Much like me, I suspect she didn't want anyone not to be able to have them for reasons of not being able to afford them, which is also why I asked her permission to record it, even though they were freely available. And she so very kindly said yes. I purchased the book for that very reason. As you can see, there's lots of notes and stuff like that. So I'm sure that's partly why you want it too. So please do continue.
No, thank you, Sheila. And a remarkable experience. If you've never had an out of body experience or a near death experience due to something traumatic happening, an event, a car wreck, or something as traumatic as that. In addition to that, something happens to where the body ceases to exist, maybe for a few seconds, a few minutes, but because there is no time on the other side, it's as if you were there for an eternity. And my experience was more of an out of body experience. It's known as an OBE. And this is what I've learned, throughout my years of learning and reading and watching videos about near death experiences. I've always been drawn to it since my out of body experience at the age of 13. So I'm going to go back a little bit. So, again, my name is Jonathan Skinner, and I was born and raised in Dallas, Texas. My grandmother and my aunt stepped in the absence of my mother, who was incarcerated at the time. And out of four other brothers and sisters, I was the only one who was just different, treated as the black sheep of the family. I was just like I felt as if I was in the wrong family, or maybe I got swapped at birth. My mom picked up the wrong baby, and I got mixed in with the wrong family. I've always felt that way, and I know other people feel that way as well. If you feel like a black sheep, so uh, as I was growing up, I had difficulties. So my first difficulty was speaking. So I had to take speech. I wasn't really able to articulate on the grade level in which I was on, but I had a hard time communicating to others and understanding what others were conveying to me. So um, that was one learning disability that uh, really messed with my self-esteem. Another learning difficulty was I had a hard time retaining information and learning and sitting still. So I would be in school, and my teacher would call my grandmother and say, "Hey, Jonathan isn't paying attention. He isn't present. Like he's imagining he's playing on a drum set, and I'm playing on my magical piano." And it wasn't really a piano at all. It was more of a make-believe piano, and I'm just having a whole concert by myself. And the teacher's like, "We need him to learn. We need him to be present. He's not present." And I had a hard time with that. And this is like maybe kindergarten, maybe first grade. And then two, when I would go to sleep at night, I would have these demonic attacks. So I would go to sleep, and then again, this is like maybe first, second grade. I would go to sleep and I would wake up with scratches all on my face and my back, all over the place. And then when I would fall asleep, I would immerse myself into a nightmare. So I'll have nightmares, for an example, falling with endless just endlessly falling without a floor to catch me. Or I'm always running from something. So these demons were trying to pick me apart, and I'm always running. With the last life that I had in my body, and I'm trying to catch my breath. So that happened for years, and I would go to sleep and go right back into the same nightmare and pick up where I left off at
Mm.
when I last woke up. So that was really traumatic. It got so bad to the point to where I would grind my teeth at night, and I had to put in guards to protect my teeth because the nightmares were so bad. And I didn't know what was going on. And I'm still trying to figure that out. So when I have a past life regression, hopefully that's going to reveal the demonic energy that I was experiencing at such a young age. So that's a little of that. Now, as far as my religion, I grew up in a um, Baptist household. I went to a Baptist church, and we know the Baptist religion. You have the Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and you can't get to Jesus but through the Son. So you have to go through Jesus Himself, and Jesus will take you to the Father, and there is no other way. That is pretty much the religion. But
That's
there are
right.
many, yeah. So there's many stories, regarding what Jesus did, the miracles that He worked while He was a man here on the earth, and all of the parables that He taught in, so people would understand what He was teaching during His time, because He was so far ahead of His time. So He had to communicate in a way people would understand what He was conveying.
Hmm.
Okay. So that's pretty much that. So I'm going to fast forward. So in school, I've always had um, an issue like standing up for myself. People just would like to bully me. So in school, throughout this whole time, I already had a learning disability. It was already hard for me to articulate. So I was in special ed at the time. And I didn't really like that because I felt I just needed a chance. I just needed someone to listen to me and take their time out. And I wanted to learn at my own pace, but nobody wanted to listen to me. They put me in the back of the classroom. Nobody really wanted anything to do with me. And that really chipped away from my self-esteem. And people would just take advantage of me, just walk up to me and hit me. Or I would be in school, minding my own business, and then all of a sudden the female will come up and scratch me in my face, just bullying me for whatever reason. And I wasn't really a bad child, like or a student. I go to school. the nicest kid you will ever meet. Not perfect, but a very warm-hearted kid, and just wanted to be heard, wanted to be understood, and people would just bully me for no reason. Take my lunch money. I'll go home and I'll cry, and I'll try to tell my grandmother, "Hey, this is what happened to me today." And my grandmother's like, "Oh, okay, well, whatever." Kind of push what I had to say to the side. It wasn't really important. But I guess she had other things going on too, because I had four other brothers and sisters. So I wasn't the only one and the only thing that she had on her mind. Okay, I understand that. Living in this world. So that my self-esteem got to an all-time low. It got to an all-time low. And I thought of many ways of ending my life. But each time I would do that, I would hear a loud voice, like a male voice, telling me, "No, don't do it," screaming, "No, don't do it." And then I'll save myself for maybe 2 weeks, and then I'll get back to that suicidal state. And then I was like, okay, how am I gonna leave here? Because my family don't like me, they don't understand me. I feel like the black sheep of the family. So what am I good for here? I'd rather just leave this earth knowing that I did the best that I could do, and it wasn't good enough. And that's just how I was feeling. And my family will be better without me because I've made so many mistakes. I try to do something. My grandmother asked me to do something. I mess it up. One time, my grandmother told me to go and check the mailbox, and she needed a check out of the mailbox. And I turned the key so hard to where I broke the key in the mailbox. And my grandmother was like, "What are you doing? Like, that's so stupid. Like, why did you do that? Like, all I asked you to do is go out there and check the mailbox, turn the key, open it, bring me the check. I need that money to pay bills." Now we had to go get pay a locksmith, and and it was like it was all my fault because I couldn't even do something as simple as turn the key, open the mailbox, and return the mail to the house. Couldn't even do that. So that really did it. That really did it. So after that point, I said, you know what, I'm done. So
Pardon
one,
me, Jonathan. All this time, you're being harassed at night as well, correct?
yes,
Right. That's what I thought. And I just wanted to bring that forward. So you're having all of this happen during the day, and then you're tortured at night in the way with these dreams. I just wanted to make sure that everyone was on board with that. That was what was happening there. And so it makes a lot of sense that you would become suicidal at that point. Please do continue.
yeah, Sheila, yes, throughout this whole duration of me feeling suicidal, things that I just wasn't doing correctly in my during the day, simple task, the nightmares were continuing at night throughout this whole traumatizing
Mhm.
event or events during my childhood. And it just got to a point to where, I went to sleep very angry. And my grandmother used to say, don't go to sleep angry. Like, don't let the sun set if you're angry. So I would try to release that negativity and release what happened to me at school. And I mean, even my teachers would talk about me because we wasn't really the wealthiest. I wasn't really the wealthiest. My grandmother did the best she could with the money she had.
Right.
And from year to year, I would wear the same clothes, same jacket, and people would make fun of me because I wasn't wearing the latest trendy brands that they were able to afford. I wanted it so bad, but I just wasn't, my grandmother wasn't able to afford it. So that bothered me as well. So I went to sleep very angry, and I said something's gonna have to give. You get to that point where you feel like something's gonna have to give because I can't continue to live like this in torture. There's no peace. There's no understanding. You feel misunderstood. Something's gonna have to give. So that the night that I went to sleep, I remember sleeping on the floor because we didn't have beds yet. And I woke up in the kitchen. Now, as I woke up in the kitchen, what was different, and this is outside of my body, this is what I call an out of body experience. There was nothing physically wrong with my body. So my body was still operating the way that it was, to my knowledge. And I woke up in the kitchen and there was a negative entity that had me bound. Now, this negative entity wasn't a he or she, but I could feel on an acute level that this was someone who was low vibrational, and I just don't know who it was, but I kind of felt like this entity was created because of me, because I felt that others didn't care about me. I was mistreated at school. My grandmother didn't really wanted to hear what I had to say. I was treated unimportantly. So my energy in a way kind of reflected that. So I feel like I conjured up this negative being because of my thoughts. I think you can imagine what I was thinking day to day.
Yeah.
And so that's what I felt. In addition to that, I also had a 360 point of view of the entire kitchen. So I didn't have to turn my head left or right. I didn't have to look behind me or look forward. I had a full view of the kitchen that I was in. Well, after some time, I'm trying to get away from this being to free myself, and I could read the thoughts of the negative entity who had me bound, and I knew when the negative entity said, "You're not going to get away from me, regardless of how strong you are." Uh, uh, if I bench press 200, pounds, that still wouldn't be enough strength. So it felt to me it wasn't a flesh to flesh type of fight. This was more of a spiritual battle. And I was looking at it as a physical battle. We fighting and we'll see who is going to outdo each
Because
other.
you're 13 at this point, right?
Yes, I'm 13.
Right, that's what I thought. Okay.
And after some time, a voice came to me. So, and not only a voice, it took me back to it took me back to who introduced me to Jesus. So for an example, when that thought came to me, call on Jesus, it took me back to the person who introduced me to religion, which was my grandmother. And in a split second, I could hear my grandmother making the decision that she was going to take us to church. And that spark that she ignited by introducing me to the church, I then found Jesus. And when I said that, I'm, and at this point, have you ever felt as if you were in sleep paralysis, or if you've been in sleep paralysis where you're screaming physically and you can't move, your body can't move?
I have
Have you
heard
been?
of that, but I haven't experienced it myself, but I have heard many others speak to that. Yes.
Okay, so okay, let me kind of go back just a little bit. So during my nightmare states, so when I would go into the nightmares, when I would go to sleep at night, I would instantly be in sleep paralysis. So you can't move, you can't scream for help, and it feels as if a negative entity is sitting on your chest, and your mouth is sealed tight. You can't scream for help. There's nothing that you can do. You
Right.
can't kick, so there were a lot of nights where I was trying to get my sister's attention, my grandmother's attention, but no one was able to help me. No one could hear me. And I'm trying to wake my body up, but my body wouldn't respond. And there was a lot of nights like that. So, and my sleep paralysis was brought on by me sleeping on my back. So I couldn't when I would sleep on my back, I would instantly go into a state where I was unable to control my physical body. So I had to sleep on my stomach. So I just wanted to share a little context on that. So
Mhm.
fast forward, I'm screaming Jesus' name, and I can hear my spiritual self, my voice, and it's so loud to where it's echoing. I can hear it in my ear, and I'm echoing, and I hear myself, and I call Jesus the first time. The second time, nothing happened. On the third time, Jesus appeared before me. Voila. And then I'm sitting there, right? And I'm standing there looking at him, and I'm like, you are now, I'm not speaking with physical words, we're telepathically speaking. But not only telepathically speaking, we are the emotions that Jesus was sharing with me was along with the thought. So I said, "Oh wow, you are real." And then he telepathically with emotion said, "Yes, I am real." And then he started laughing. Like it was it was kind of a joke because he said, "Why don't people think that I'm real?" I said, "I don't know. Because you're made to be this character. I never met you. I've only heard about the stories and the miracles you worked leading up to me being born, but I didn't have the opportunity to meet you." So he was like, "Yes, I'm real." So he said to prove it, he said, "Look at my hands." So he showed me his hands, and their holes were still there. The holes used to hang him on the cross, but something different happened. A silhouette of light. It was a glow that I saw. And even in his feet, he said, "Check out my feet." So I looked down and he said, "You see the holes?" He said, "Yeah, they're still in my feet." He never removed them. So he said, "That's proof that I did live as a man in my time." I said, "Okay, okay, I believe you." And in that instant, I went back in time and I was reliving what Mary, all of the anger from the Jews who wanted him dead. I lived from the perspective of everyone there. And I felt the emotions of everyone, even Jesus' emotions in a split second. And then I went back to the current reality that me and him was in. And he said, "Well," I said, "But well, who are you?" And he said, "Who do you say?" He said, "Who do you say I am?" Because I don't know because I hear all these different things about you. You send people to hell when you don't do right. You don't walk a straight, narrow path. And then if I don't do that, then you send me to hell. And then he was like, "I want you to decipher who I am. I want you, me, because I'm expressing who I am. I am illuminating transparency. I'm illuminating grace and love, and all these different things are just flowing into my spiritual being." And I said, "You are not that." He said, "No." He said, "People make me out to be all these things," but he said, when the physical body, when the soul leaves the physical body, they're able to see who I really am, and all of who I am. And he said, "I'm so complex that you can't figure me out with your physical brain. There's no way because there's so many different aspects to me," he said. But he said, "There is no right or wrong. People can view me in the way they want to view me because that's their story. We all have a unique story. And I'm not here to take anyone's unique story away from them. But I am not one dimensional. I'm not just for the church. I'm for everyone. And you will see, we will all get to see that when we leave this physical reality." Okay. So I said, "Well," so I'm going to describe some of his features. Now, I wasn't able to see his face because his face was veiled with light, but I knew who he was. I knew I didn't have to physically see him. Like my knowing was extremely acute. So I knew that we lived every lifetime together. I've known him since the creation of time, which I can't even say that because there's no beginning or end. My awareness was heightened to the point to where I knew everything that was, everything that will be, and everything that is currently happening now, all simultaneously happening all at the same time. It was so deep to the point to where I know why I chose my mother, my grandmother, why my life challenges were set the way they were, and why they were so hard from my human's perspective. I knew everything about the solar system. I knew everything about the sun. I knew how big it was. I knew how many particles of light made up the sun, how big they were. I knew them by their name. I I knew when the sun came into existence. I knew everything in a split second. I knew everything. So I didn't really have any questions, not really. So I said, "Well," I said, can I go home with you?" I said, "Because I don't like those people on earth." I said, "They're so mean." I said, "They're so mean, and I want to come home with you." Um, I'm going to back up a little bit. I'm sorry. So
No, the floor is yours, my dear. And I want to just tell everyone, this is really the first time that you're speaking this story to anyone, really. I mean, right? The whole story, I'm sure. So, yes, you just take your time and share what you feel called to share.
thank you. Thank you,
Sure.
Sheila. So Some of his features, I'm sorry, before I get to the wrapping up of our experience. So his hair was like brown, kind of like shoulder length, but not too long. I want to say he was maybe 5'6", not too tall. His skin glowed like I want to say something like brass, but his skin was alive. His skin wasn't like our dense skin. Like our skin compared to his is dead. It's our skin looks like flesh on a bone, but his skin permeated light, like small light particles that spoke, that breathed life. Okay, and it had a warmness to it. He had a like shad, what do you call it? A white robe, and then a gold shat. What do you call it? Sash.
A
A
sash,
gold.
yeah.
A
Okay.
gold. Yeah. So that I saw that. But then what was so mysterious to me was I wasn't able to see his face. He veiled his face. So I don't know if it was because if I saw his face, I was going to go home and not return to my physical body. So he didn't do that. So it has to be something with his eyes. It may be it's something with his eyes to where if you look into his eyes, you're not coming back. And you
Hmm.
know, so I don't know if it's that, but then I've heard other near-death experiencers say that they saw his eyes. So
Mm.
I don't know what was up with that, but he didn't reveal his face. I couldn't see it. But two, he still had that his descent. Jesus was he what was his nationality? You know,
He was Arabic, wasn't he?
Arabic. Okay. So he still had that, he still had his nationality. That never changed. He still was who he was, just an elevated version of who he was. So after that happened, and I'm sorry, and he was roughly, I want to say 32. I got it, 32. I'm gonna say 32. So, but then yet he came off young. He came off like a 32-year-old, but yet he was ancient at the same time. So that was kind of confusing too. You can feel an ancient respect about him, a reverence like like myself, if I'm 32 but I spoke as if I was an extremely wise man, you will kind of probably be confused like who is this guy? You
Well,
come off like
especially to a 13-year-old. I mean, come on, you were only 13. So, yeah, absolutely. I get exactly what you're saying.
I was just confused and I was trying to figure him out. And I'm going to use this analogy. So by the time I figured out one aspect of him, I kind of felt as if it was a mansion that was continuously expanding. So by the time I've experienced and figured out the living room and where everything was in the living room and all of the other house, by the time I get to, as I assumed, the ending of the house, and I'm under the impression that I've explored every square inch. More of the house has been added onto, and there's more to explore. And I'm like, and there's no end to it. There is no end to it. So that's what I felt he was like. And he was like, "You trying to figure me out telepathically?" I said, "Yes." He said, "With your brain, you can't." But he said, "You will one day." He said, "You will. I promise you, you will." So he said, I said, so can I come with you, please? I said, I was begging and was pleading. Can I please come go back with you? I can't do that life. My family don't like me. And he said to me, he said, you can come home, but he said you wouldn't be really as satisfied as you would be if you complete what you set out to do. You don't want this life to be a waste. And I said, okay. I said, but can I choose a new family? He said, no. He said, you're going to show your family love. You're going to show them things that no one else can show them but me. And he said, if you go back early, that'd be a little selfish of you. And you have so many experiences that you signed up for. So you're in the physical body. This is what you asked for. You wanted to be incarnated as a human being. You wanted to experience physical things. Now you have it. So go live it. Go experience it. And I said, no, I'm not doing it. I said, no, I'm not going back. And Jesus is one of the best when it comes to bargaining. He's the best because he's not forcing, but he's very clever with his words. He's going to get you into thinking. He's going to get you to say, I'll go back, and he's going to open up a screen of reality, and he says, "Listen, look, you make the decision, but if you leave early, these are the events that's going to happen." For an example, your daughter or your mother is going to grow up without a son, and all these things, and they're going to create ripple effects. So your mom connected to your aunt connected to your uncle, everybody's going to feel the effects of my decision because I was only thinking of myself. So he said, consider everybody's. And I said, okay. So yes, he won me over. He said, you go back and make the world great. You can do it, Jonathan. You can do it. And I said, okay. And I said, can you? He said, I promise you one thing. He said, I'll come back and get you when it's your time. He said, I promise. I said, okay. So there was one part I didn't mention. So when Jesus showed up, the negative entity ran away like a little rat. It kind of felt like a bully who was um, one who was abusing their power. And then when the big brothers show up, and this bully knows everything about this individual or your brother or the person who's coming to help you, they know he can fight. They know this person have all the weapons that they need to defeat this bully. The
Right.
bully knows that. And
Hmm.
that's what I felt that the negative entity knew. And the negative entity scattered like a coward. He was gone. That entity was gone. Jesus stepped on the scene and he was like, yeah, I'm here. And there was no doubt, no fear. He said, I got this. I got it all under control, Jonathan. I got this. So since that experience at the age of 13, everything that I was taught as a child and the religious background that I grew up in the Baptist church, my world was flipped upside down. Then I'm like, well, shoot. Well, I was taught 1 plus 1 is 1. And now 1 plus 1 is 6. And for an example, I'm like, everything that I was taught, I'm happy to go back and rearrange all of what I was taught. And from that point, I've always been, and this was before YouTube. This was before I could go online and research what actually happened to me. And I told my grandmother, hey, grandma, this is what happened. My grandmother said, wow. He said, you had that experience? I said, yes. And I've told him many a time. I told it up until the time my grandmother passed. And I've always had like spiritual, I'll get into this later, but I've always had like spiritual gifts as a little boy. And it's, near-death experiences I'm attracted to. I love watching it. I watched this channel by the name of Heaven Awaits, and Lee is the narrator, and he has so many videos of in the ears or out of body experiencers who are writing into him, and he narrates the experience. So that is a channel for you all to check out if you're interested in near death experiences, out of body experiences. People think that they're going crazy, like and there have been situations where a husband or a wife, male or female, would have a out of body experience, near death experience, and then where were married 20 years, they're divorced because the wife or husband changed so much, and they kind of came off as weird, like crazy. So they're not people who are married a very long time are no longer married because their spiritual experience changed them so much.
That kind of happens. I was in a 28 and a half year marriage myself, and we agreed to part ways. So I do feel like that's a very real thing, and it's okay. I mean, he's much happier and I'm much happier, and that really is, if you truly love someone, you want them to be happy. And so, yeah, I totally get what you're saying there.
And that's pretty much my experience. I mean, I've been on a spiritual journey since the age of I needed some years to like digest what happened to me. So I didn't get into spirituality right away after my spiritual experience. But when by the age of 25, that's when everything started to click. And then what really did it for me, what really accelerated my spiritual experience was when my grandmother passed in 2019. And I was very close. I mean, my grandmother was like my mother. So that was the closest person that I've lost in this lifetime that really, really hurt. But after she passed in 2019, my little nephew, who she at the time she was blind, but she saw my nephew. She knew his skin color, and she said, I know what skin tone the baby's going to be." And she used this saying, pa paper sack brown." And when he was born, he has that same type of texture of skin or color of skin. And my grandmother was legally blind, but she was blind maybe the last 10 years of her life. But she was someone who was independent, businesswoman. She was more of the model or matriarch of our family.
Right.
And she did very good financially. And then for her to do very well in running all these businesses, having a very nice home, cars, very educated woman. And then everything kind of went downhill to where she was depending on other people. So after she passed in 2019, I started seeing angel numbers. I started having uh, dreams regarding premonitions. I mean, all sorts of stuff started to happen. And it's been like that ever since.
Oh, wow. Now, so you really began your intense spiritual journey at that point. It sounds like that's when you really went all in, so to speak. Is that right?
Yeah, so I that's when angel numbers were showing up everywhere. And I wasn't into the angel numbers prior to my grandmother's passing. I was I was always wanting to change my life for the better, wanting to be that beacon of light, wanting to be the positive person in the room, having something uh, transformative to say. If you're having a bad day, I'm the one to be like, "Oh, everything's going to be okay." So I looked at my life in that way and stepped away from the negative side of my thoughts, and I wanted to give more to the world. And I'm sorry, I was going to say, my little nephew, when we went to the cemetery to bury my grandmother in November 2019, my little nephew was maybe like 4 at the time. And me and my sister was sitting on the bed looking up at the ceiling. And my sister, just playing with her son. And then my nephew was like, "All right, bye." And he's waving to the ceiling. And I'm like, "Who do you see?" And at the time he couldn't talk. He was still learning to talk, and he just kept waving. So in order for my nephew to do this, somebody have to initiate it. This is not going to do that out of the blue. He's going to mimic what he sees. So he was mimicking what my grandmother, which I knew she was there, saying, "I'm just saying hello to you," and he just kept saying bye. I was, "Who are you talking to?" Yeah.
I had that experience with my child. He was not quite two, and I came into the room, and he was standing up in a chair, pointed away from me. And he was just, you know how little kids do. He was not really talking a lot of words. He could speak and he could talk in sentences, but for the most part, he was just so animated and talking and using his hands. And I knew he was talking to someone. And so I said, "Who are you talking to, buddy?" And he said, "Paw Paw." Well, that was my great grandfather's name. And my great grandfather died in 1972. My son wasn't born until 1982. And he'd only seen pictures of him. And so I knew that he was seeing my great grandfather. We were living in my great grandmother's house at the time. So I do not doubt that whatsoever. My feeling is that we, as children, we reside in what I call the God frequency for the first 5 to 7 years, maybe longer, depending on the child and the situation. We live in what I call the God frequency, where we came from. And so it's very easy for the children who haven't been conditioned and programmed into believing something else because they're so innocent, they just say exactly what they see. And we're the ones that talk them out of it, because we can't see it anymore. And so, yeah, I don't doubt that at all about your nephew.
I was going to mention, so I was going to mention about my gifts. Well, not more of my gifts yet, but when I was 4 or 5, my grandmother would pass my room and I'm having a full conversation with these beings. And in hindsight, when I look back now, I'm like, it was beings the whole time. Because my grandmother was like, I'm in there talking to a ceiling, or I'm in there talking to a wall, and my grandmother's just observing me like, this boy is crazy. And we have to go get him some help. And I'm
Oh,
like, yes, every day. Every day I'm in there having a whole I said, these are and my grandma said, who are you talking to? I said, they are my imaginary friends. And my grandmother was like, yeah, come on. So let's get you some help, baby.
yeah,
It's
and you would be surprised to find that that is what a lot of parents do. They panic and they think that, the child is conversing with an imaginary friend and well, we got to nip that in the bud. When in fact, it's the most natural thing in the world. So yeah, that I bet that happens to everyone. I know it happened to me because it continued for a while with me right up till I was in the fourth grade. I was having experiences with fairies, and only myself and this other little gal in our neighborhood could actually see them. I think my sister might have seen them a couple of times, but I was very vocal about it. And I was punished and called a liar and all those kinds of things. And that's what we do to children. It's no wonder that none of us actually trusts our inner voices when we are constantly, as adults, shutting those inner voices down and teaching children that they can't trust what they see and what they hear just because the adult is unable to see and hear. And so I totally get where you're coming from there. I know that has happened to many. As a matter of fact, you said about the black sheep. Most beings, most humans who feel exactly the way you do have had a lot of those kinds of experiences. And that is what goes into that feeling of being the black sheep of the family, the odd man out, so to speak. Yeah,
Yeah, I certainly agree. And I mean, since my spiritual experience has changed my life, they always say, be careful what you ask for because you just might get it.
that's right.
And I got what I asked for, but I needed it because it catapulted my life in a direction where I'm not just taking what someone tell me or teaches me. I have to go back and research it myself, or if it doesn't resonate with me, then I don't really hold it in. That's not something that I meditate over. So I'm very careful, like who I listen to. And Sheila, the readings of the Jeshua channeling. I thank you so much for taking your personal time out to record that. And you don't know like how many people that you're helping, and people who've always felt they were weird or the black sheep of the family or the child who always thought they were crazy and was possibly put on medication, like myself. You've seen many psychiatrists, reevaluating your brain to make sure that there's not something physically or medically wrong with you. It's a lot, and you keep telling people there is nothing wrong with me, and people keep labeling you as no, yours is something wrong with you. We're going to put you in a box.
Right.
We're going to label your box, and you're
Yep.
crazy. And it
Well,
makes
I
people shut
totally
down.
agree. I want you to know, Jonathan, that because I had recorded the Jeshua channelings before, and they were all on my other channel called Corona Rising. When I decided that I needed to record them again without any channel name attached to it, this last time, I felt absolutely driven to get it done. And there's a part of me now that you have appeared, I wonder if part of that driving force within me didn't have something to do with you. And because I have promised myself and my larger aspect of myself that I would go with all of my nudges, just the very fact that you appeared and you said very specifically that it was the Jeshua channelings that prompted that. I just, and you're probably not the only one, as I know that, it just happens that way. If For me, that's why following one's internal promptings is so important because you're right. We have no idea how that will ripple out. And honestly, I'm not doing it for anybody but me, because I promised myself that I would now pay attention to my inner landscape and my inner landscape only. And so thank you for the compliment. But in truth, I've always been very clear about any YouTube channel I've ever been a part of. This really is for me. And if it helps someone else, I look at that as a win-win situation because just showing up and doing as I've been nudged has enriched my life in ways that I could never have foreseen. And that is why I will always continue to do exactly what I feel moved to do. And the Jeshua channelings has been a big part of that for me. So thank you for that. Because I do feel it's important everyone follow their own internal promptings. So please continue. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
Oh no, you're fine. I mean, that's
okay.
pretty much and I'm just going to piggyback off of what you said, and when I go back to my experience, when Jesus said, if I would have left early, if you would have left early, if you were thinking about leaving this world because it was just life was too much, and that thought it comes up, and when it come up, you just want to go home, you just want to escape the trauma here. But then the other side of the coin is if you leave early, me meeting you would have never happened. And I met you through YouTube. And then Richard, it's a ripple effect.
Yes,
If it wasn't for you, then I wouldn't know you. And if it wasn't for YouTube's platform, I don't know what other way in which we would have, heard about the Jeshua channeling.
that's
You
right.
know, so
Because I'm in North Carolina and you're in Texas. We may never have crossed each other's paths. You're absolutely right about that.
so when we say we want to go home early, we want to go back to the other side, you know, sort of, you know, sort of speak. Then you do understand that the people that you were meant to help, and it may not be 1,000 people, it may not be a concert, a sold out concert or a stadium. It may not be the fireworks, like the things that you think that you're doing is changing the lives of others. It's the very small things, and a smile, a word of encouragement, opening a door for somebody, small things like that. But without you being there, without me being here, leaving early, all of those opportunities, me helping you, you helping somebody else, and it continues. That ripple effect never happens if I leave early.
Yep, that's
And that's
true.
the same for you. The same for you. You're here in your mind, you really have to shut it down because I even have gifts to where I read people. And when I read people, I have to shut my brain off because my brain is trying to analyze people. And this is not a mathematical equation. You can do that if you're working outside of the spiritual realm. But
Yeah.
when you're working in the spiritual realm, I cut my brain off. And then I listen to my spiritual guidance, and my brain is like, but I can hear my brain like, how is this possible? My brain is trying to conceptualize how this is even happening, and I have to, okay.
Mhm, I can relate. I can relate. That's why I love the intuitive hangout sessions because it is a way for me to practice shutting that brain off and only listening to that small, still, very subtle voice inside and coming to know that and I feel that all of us on this planet have all the skills. It's just a matter of whether or not we A, are going to believe it, and B, then honing those skills. Because without the belief that we have them, the honing doesn't even come into play. And there's a lot of programming and conditioning in a lot of cases. Like for me, I didn't start any of this until, I was well into my 50s. And it's really only been over the last 8 years that I started looking into spirituality separate from religion. And yeah, so I mean, I totally agree with you about shutting the brain off.
But Sheila, did you have any questions for me?
Well, I do. I do. If you're complete with your story, I wanted to ask you a little bit about some of those gifts. I know that when we all well, and I wanted to actually, I meant to do this when we first came in the room. I wanted to be very clear with folks. I when last week. It was, like I said, right about this same time when I began. I think I was actually about to end it because I had started a little earlier last Saturday. And in the years that I have done intuitive hangout sessions, which I started doing them in 2018. And so I've done that for years. But for the most, and I have had men show up in the room, but one here, maybe two at one time, but never all males. And last Saturday night, it was all males who showed up. I mean, if there were females in the room, nobody asked for a card until the very end. It was all males. And of the males, it was more than just the three of you that we met together. There was at least five that I can recall everyone's name. And it was more than just asking for a card. It was what I was witnessing was an openness and a vulnerability, not just with me, but with each other. And for me, that felt huge. It felt significant. It felt like it was a signal for something. What it is, I've been calling it the rise of the divine or sacred masculine just welling up because since that time, this entire week, I've actually noticed that it has continued. I was doing a live yesterday. And Crystal, who is another collaborator here on this channel, sent me a private message while I was live on Friday and informed me that she was at the park and it was all dads with their children at the park. And she wanted me to know that because she had never, she works for the park system there in South Carolina, and she'd never noticed that before, that it was, she'd never had it actually, that it was all males in that. And I just, to me, that again kind of brings home for me that this is a signal of some sort. Exactly what it is, I don't know. But the fact is that since I really started doing this in 2017, I've wondered, where are the males? Why are they not interested in themselves or in spirituality or trying to get to the truth of who they are or anything like that? And I think part of it is that there is a required openness that is required to even look internally at self And so for me, I felt that extreme open and vulnerability last Saturday, so much so that we all gathered in a Zoom room after that intuitive hangout session, and that's where you and I had a chance to speak more, and when we arranged for this recording. So again, I feel that was a big signal to me that by following my nudge, that feeling driven, this is, at least a possibility that meeting you and moving in this direction now is, sort of meant to be. And the possibilities and the opportunities that will open up from this for all of us are going to be, I don't know, I want to say miraculous in nature. And yeah, so yes, I'm very interested though, because you said something when we were together that after your original meeting of Jesus when you were 13, that it did change a lot for you, that you were much more able to sense and feel others. And so and that is when your gifts started to really show themselves to you. And so one of the questions I have for you is that um, was that difficult at 13? And did you actually have to shut that down for a time? Because now you also said that you really only began to really dig into it at 25. So I'm just wondering, can you give us a little, what was it like for you from that time till you were 25? Did the negative entities come back? And you kind of indicated too that that negative entity was something of your own creation. Did you ever have another experience with that, or how did you handle that?
It's a good question. So, from time to time, so after, 13, let's say 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, graduation, I would have sleep paralysis, an experience with uh, a negative entity, low vibrational entity from time to time. And that would be, again, when I sleep on my back. When I sleep on my back, that's when the sleep paralysis is brought on. It would happen every now and then, but no negative entities.
Okay.
Um, it started, so it continued at the age of 13 and it weared off as I got older. When I was 18, not really, the sleep paralysis would happen, but the negative entities, no. But I still didn't like that lack of control feeling when you're in sleep paralysis. So that continued. And my spiritual growth kind of happened at its own pace. So angel numbers were trying to pop up, but I kept telling myself, "Oh, that's just a coincidence." And I don't believe in angel numbers. So it was like a patient, continuous process. Like it really, really, really was. So, but nothing spiritually happened after the age of 13. Not really. I just started to see myself as being connected to everyone and everything, being mindful of what I say because I know what, if I'm mean to someone else or inconsiderate, I'm only inconsiderate and, mean to myself. So that kind of really hit home, you know. But nothing else, well, premonitions, I would have premonitions about things and they would come true the next day. Maybe there are other times where it would be weeks away, months away, but whatever I dreamt about would come true. So
Oh,
that was happening.
that must have been interesting as a teenager to have happen. Did you
Yeah.
share those with many people outside of, just your knowing it, or and what was that sort of reaction?
Well, to be honest, I've always shared my spiritual experience, not right after my experience at the age of 13. It took me some time to kind of dissect that to figure out what happened because it was
Mhm.
so far-fetched. But as I got older, 18, 19, I would, I'm working at KFC, Taco Bell, and I'm there, making tacos or whatever, and I'm talking about spirituality, but I'm saying it in a way to where I don't scare people away. So I have to tell it in a way to where it makes sense to them without taking away from my unique experience. But I was always the one sharing my experiences, and and the person I'm speaking to was speaking to would be really interested. We'd be talking for hours. And they were like, tell me more, tell me more. And then some people would be like, yeah, you're weird. Yeah, dude. Like, yeah, you're weird. I don't know what you're talking about. And I had to learn that, like, not everybody's on the same path,
Right.
in
Right.
life. And it is what it is. Excuse me. So with that being said, because we're not all on the same path, you have to be open to that, you know? You
Right.
you have to you have to get yourself ready and know, okay, not everybody's going to see eye to eye. And with that, you just sometimes people need more time than others.
Right. Oh, that's true. I have traumatized at least one or two beings with some of my stories, so I know exactly what you mean. There's a look and it's a little easier now for me than it was before because it used to be that I would just plug on through regardless until my housemate Lisa finally helped me see the trauma that I was installing in the beings. And because I really wasn't paying, that was part of it. I wasn't paying attention. I was just so eager to share my story that I wasn't really paying attention to the other being. Are they actually taking it in or what's happening there, you know? So I can totally relate to that as well.
So I know you're curious. So like, what gifts I have?
Yes, I'd love to hear what it is that you do. Because now, let me ask. You said readings, so are you doing readings for folks? Is that something that you do?
I have to be led to do it.
Gotcha.
I'm not offering it as a service right
I
now.
gotcha. I
I
gotcha.
will, I will soon. But here's an example. I've always been that way. I never knew outside of what I was taught as far as the Baptist church, like
Gotcha.
reading people. And I would tell my grandmother that I would have these, a knowing about a person that I don't know or do know, but what I'm sharing with them, they did not tell me, and it would just come on automatically. I would just have this knowing of what to talk about, and it could be somebody at a store, a friend, myself, whoever.
Mhm.
And I've been doing it for a while, and this is probably maybe when I was like, I don't know, 22, 23. I worked at AAA, and I was doing it a lot. I was doing it a lot, and the church frowns up on readings because that's more of like witchcraft. It's frowned upon. It's
Yeah,
not
you're
in the
right.
Bible.
I know exactly what you mean. Being in North Carolina, which is sort of the Bible Belt, reading tarot and whatnot, like I do, is not frowned. It's not really very acceptable, you know. So yeah, I feel you on that.
But yeah, I would, read people. Like it would just, I would just know what to say. And then there'll be times where, because if, there are times where I would just say, this is crazy. There's just no way that I know what I know. And then I will avoid people that I know I should deliver a message to, don't know what they're going through in their life. They could be going through something traumatic. Life may be very hard for them. And then I'll see them in the lunchroom at my job, and I was like, I'm not going to talk to them. And then his voice is saying, no, go talk to her. And I want you to tell her these things. And I'm like, and I'm having a debate in my head, like, no, like I'm already looked at as crazy. And if I do that, it's going to make me even more crazy. And then the person, I would see him again in the hallway. And I'm like, listen, I said, ma'am, please. I got to tell you this. Can I please tell you what's on my mind, please? Because this spirit, the universe is not going to leave me alone until I say what I need to say. And then the lady's crying. She's like, how did you know that? I said, because I know. And then she gave me a hug and she's like, when we, best friends. She's like, I needed that. Whatever was going on in her life, I can't remember, but she said, whatever you said, she said, I needed that. How do you know that? I said, I just know. So that reading there, I think it was a really a reading to where it solidified me being in tune with the universe, you know.
So it was really your first foray into giving what you got and being responded to in that manner. Really sort of, it sounds like it just validated for you that it's not just a coincidence that you are getting information. That's lovely. And so
Yes,
that's just continued, huh?
it's continued. I can still do it today. I still do it today, with people, random people. So it can get overwhelming because at a point of time for a long time, my emotions got entangled with other people's emotions. And there were a lot of times where I didn't go into large places like like shopping malls, grocery stores, because it was just too overwhelming for me. So I had to learn how to shield myself from the energies of other people. I'm still learning that, but I'm much better than I used to be.
Well, that's
Because all I wanted to do was stay in the house and not leave the house because there's too many energies.
a bit overwhelming. Yeah, I could see where if you're a wide open vessel like that, I could see where that would be a little overwhelming. Yeah. I feel very fortunate that I do not have that. I do not have that issue. I'm so glad actually now. Well, like you said before, be careful what you wish for because you just may get it.
That is true.
So you said that that is something that you may be offering coming down the pike, and so that would be lovely if that's something that you're going to do. Whenever you're ready to do that, I would love to for you to, if you're willing, to be able to do a reading for me, and we can put that out, and let folks because I'm an open book, man. I'm not afraid of any. I mean, listen, when you've been 490 pounds, there's not a whole lot that you're worried about folks finding out about you. You know what I mean? Because that's something you just can't hide. So. Not to mention, I do carry around a field of transparency because, quite frankly, I want to see all of me. And I'm not really good at looking at myself. Like, a lot of readers, they can read for others, but they cannot see inside their own field. And so for myself, I found that I was in the human design way of looking at a being. I'm what that is called a projector, and they're also called a seer. So I can very easily, apparently, according to that, see into another's field, but not so much in my own. So I found out I was collecting almost all the folks I was meeting and feeling close to are also projectors. Now, I haven't looked at yours yet. You have given me your information. I suspect, however, that you may also be a projector. So we'll see about that, and I'll share that if with your permission at another time. But wow, I have a feeling that there's way more to come with you. And if you're willing, I would love for you to come back and share whatever it is that you might have to share with me, with folks that are open to hearing what you have to share. And I don't know. I'm still, I'm not, I won't say blown away because it's getting a little harder for that to be, but it certainly explains for me an awful lot about why I felt so driven to get this back up on the channels. and I have it in on both channels now. So, and I have a copy so that if the channels get taken down, I can very quickly put it back up again. So,
No, that it's been remarkable, and like you say, your brain is going to get used to your brain analyzes everything, and because of that, but your spirit is taking you a different direction. Your brain is wanting you to go. I'm sorry, your brain is wanting you to go right, and your spiritual self is wanting to go left. And it's kind of like a tug of war because your brain is like, well, you wasting your time. I'm talking about you. Like you're wasting your time. Why are you recording this? It sounds so silly. But your spiritual self is telling you you have to do it. You have to do it. I know it doesn't make sense right now, but you don't know who's going to come across this video, and you're sowing seeds. This is a seed that no man, no human can unroot.
that's
Nobody. These are spiritual seeds, and you're already planting them for many generations to come. People come back to you, and it's like, hey, 30 years ago, remember you, it's like, yeah, I remember that. And sometimes you may not even remember. I was like, yeah, you did this for me. So continue doing what you're doing. I'm very, very proud of you. You're taking your personal time, your resources, making all of this happen, listening to your higher self. And this is just a perfect example. When you listen to your spiritual self, tune out the mind, tune out the physical mind, you can go when I speak of the word fulfillment, this is truly fulfillment at its best.
I agree. I agree wholeheartedly, wholeheartedly. And like I said, I do, I don't know. I feel even after this exchange, I kind of knew originally when you showed up in the room where we got to actually, I'm a very visual person. And so when we all met in the Zoom room, I had a feeling that there was things we would do together. Now, this is one of them. There may be more, and I want you to know that I'm totally open to that. And I'm also open to supporting you in whatever way that I can as you begin your journey with your YouTube channel. As a matter of fact, if you don't mind, I'm going to take a moment and share my screen and just sort of show everyone your YouTube channel so that folks can take a look. It is Spirit and Mind Academy. And as I said, I will be putting a link to your channel in the Show More section. And this is what it looks like, so you'll know that you're at the right place. And I highly encourage. Now, I have only gotten to look at your first video, but I just know there's going to be more coming from you, and I'm sure a lot of different ways. And I really look forward to that. Is there anything else that you would like to share with us before we close it out? Or, I mean, it's up to you. I don't want to rush you because I'm not in any hurry or anything like that, but I want to make sure that that you feel complete in this sharing. And just to tell everyone that I hope this won't be the only time that we have a sharing like this.
No, I think I'll be back on the show. I promise. I'm actually working on. So for those who are new to my channel, Sheila, thank you so much for the invitation. The exposure. I'm extremely grateful. And for those who are on the brink of studying spirituality, and I'm not saying forsake your religion. I mean, if religion keeps you grounded and keeps you focused and not just it's very easy to get caught up in physical things because you'll treat people any type of way to and we think the only thing that's meaningful to life is money and physical things, but the moral side of it we don't really pay attention to. So if religion keeps you grounded, follow that. But if you want an unlimited amount of awareness, if you want uh, an open playing field to experience all there is to experience without the labels, without the list of rituals, with regardless of whatever religion you're following, there is a limitation to the rituals in which we have to follow. Spirituality is an open playing field. Open. There are no labels to anything. And be open minded. Follow what nudges are made visible, or maybe a not physical nudge, but whatever you're getting internally, follow that, because that's going to be your yellow brick road, so to speak, to what was it? To the wizard, just like the
Yes,
Wizard of Oz. That is your
yes.
yellow brick road. All you have to do is listen and follow the nudges. It'll take you throughout life. And I was going to say something else. Oh, and two, my first video, it describes the same experience, what happened to me at the age of 13. I met Jesus. That's the first video that I recorded on YouTube, so y'all check that out. And then the second video is my top 10 symptoms one would experience after a spiritual experience. So maybe maybe I should come back and discuss the symptoms one will experience,
I
because it
would
could.
I would adore that. Like I said, you've got an open invitation, my love. Anytime you want to come and share anything with me and this channel, you have an open invitation. You just hit me up and say, "Hey, I got something to share," and we'll make a time, because that's exactly what Conscious Conversation Central is about. And I will say to anyone else out there who has been experiencing anything similar to what you have, or have dreams or anything like that, that they feel to share, that they are nudged to share. Maybe you don't have your own YouTube channel. Maybe you just are nudged to share and you don't even know how to go about it. Again, conscious conversation central at gmail.com. I'm your gal. This is why I felt nudged in 2017, because I don't mind putting my hand up, being the first one on the dance floor to say, y'all, come on. Because here's the deal, and you kind of alluded to this, okay? In the religion, it doesn't matter which one, and I've been to all of them. Uh, they have a very specific path that one must follow. And I have come to find for myself that there is no one way. There are as many ways to spirituality, to enlightenment, as there are beings. And that is why I advocate everyone listen to your internal nudges, because that is how you will be guided in the proper way for yourself. Yes, if you feel drawn to someone, listen to what they have to say. Maybe it will spark something within you so that you'll listen to your own inner voice. But don't take it as gospel. I never take what someone else says as gospel, and I'll tell you why. For me, I can very clearly see that every being on this planet has been programmed and conditioned. And I say it in that way specifically. You could also use the words indoctrinated. You could also say the way you were raised. All of that fits into that category. And all of it, even though everyone has had the best intentions in mind, it has shut us down from trusting our own selves. And that, for me, is the whole point of, and I that's the way of moving into this new and next paradigm that I feel we're moving into, is self responsibility, self accountability, self reliability, listening to the self. That's the only way to develop our own discernment. And so, that's what this is all about. It's about being open to hearing new and different concepts, because each one of us have these experiential filters that we each have had as we're raised, as we're, going through school, we're taught all these different things that may or may not be totally true. I realized that a lot of us make a lot of assumptions about what we think is true
Right.
based on what we've been taught. And I don't know, again, at 63, I can see very clearly that a lot of the things that I've held as true, actually, I've assumed were true. And so by being open to hearing what everyone else has to share may be just the ticket to spark something within to help me, you, to hear your own voice and begin your own quest for getting to the truth of who you are and the why you're here and moving in the direction that, I don't know, for me, it's brought about an awful lot of joy and an awful lot of peace that I didn't have before. So thank you for bringing that forward because it is an open invitation to you and everyone else that tunes in to this channel and to me at all, that this is the place to come and share should you desire to. Oh, thank you, Jonathan, for again for being so open and being so willing to share. I'm so grateful to you. And I really am excited about what we may do together in the future. I really, really am.
Well, Sheila, again, thank you so much again for the Joshua channeling readings. The entire book is on YouTube and others. You can listen to it at your leisure, check it out. And it's a really phenomenal reading, a different perspective, a different understanding of who Joshua was
Yes,
outside of who we know him as, which is a religious person, which he's not. He's more than that. So check it out. That's how I found you, Sheila. I thank you so much for narrating. It was so cool. Pamela Kirby is the author, and you also check it out. It's on Sheila's page. And Sheila, thank you so much again for the opportunity of being here, sharing my out of body experience at the age of 13, and I look forward to next time. I really do.
all right. Well, like I said, I'm excited. I know we're going to be doing some really cool stuff. I could just feel it. So to everyone else, let me just say that I wish for you that you will move towards that which brings you joy in each moment that presents itself to you, because it really is just a matter of perspective and perhaps your perception of that perspective. And I feel like there is always more than one way to view something, even in the most heated of moments. If we only allow ourselves to take a few breaths, perhaps step out of that perspective if it's, really chaotic, and try to see it from a different vantage point, you just may find that there's one that brings you a little bit higher joy. Thank you again so much, Jonathan. You stay right there. And I'm just going to say to everyone, thanks for tuning in. I love y'all so much. Till next time, be well, my friends.